Alright, so welcome to the 5th episode of Other Animals, the So Great and Powerful podcast. We've got Avery on today, and
welcome,
Hi.
Avery. Yeah, hello.
Hello indeed. It's
welcome
really
one.
lovely to be here.
Welcome one, welcome all, welcome null. We're back on the sgap podcast, the Other Animals podcast.
I've been so hyped for this for a while. I'm really glad to be here and just to talk about this sort of stuff.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you're finally going to be able to give us the juicy sgap thoughts that you have.
Totally.
Let's
get into it.
We're gonna talk about a lot of stuff today. We're gonna talk about tea. We're gonna talk about music. We're gonna talk about life and everything in between.
Awesome.
Tea, music, and life. That's the title of my next album.
That sounds like a great album, really cozy.
Yes.
Cozy vibes.
So starting out, how should we address you? Like, what's your name? What's your pronouns?
Yeah, so I am Avery. That's my username and my name, and I use she, they pronouns.
Cool.
That's me.
Alright.
Sweet.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm Boby. I also use she, they pronouns. I'm the co-host.
Yep, and I'm Daniel. I've been in the other episodes, and yeah, I use he, they pronouns.
I actually wasn't in the last episode.
You are not.
And Adia filled in. She did a great job.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought Olivia had a lot of great things to say as well, like a lot of interesting little tangents and concepts.
Yeah.
About SGAP.
Yeah, that was a fun podcast to listen to.
Yeah, I wanted to mention, maybe we can mention this at the start, but I'm trying to have the hosts switch around more often, because that worked out so well.
Yeah.
So
I think we should definitely get some more guest hosts and just have like more interesting combinations of people on. Like, I don't mind sitting out a couple episodes.
yeah,
at
I
a
could
time.
even sit out too. Like, I haven't sat out on an episode yet, and
Yeah, that would be a nice little experiment.
right. So yeah, we'll arrange that in the coming episodes. But for now, is there like anything else, Avery, you would like people to know about you?
So I guess I could just mention that generally speaking, I'm a musician. Like, that's what most people seem to know me as on the servers, and I'm also just like a very musical person. So I have a lot of opinions about music, and I learned a lot about it. I play a bunch of instruments, but also like I don't know, I live in the UK, as you can probably tell by my accent, and I have been like a fan of MLP for years. Like, I first joined the fandom in 2011, so
Right
yeah.
at the beginning.
And that, yeah, and I'm one of the old timers, I guess.
Real nice.
Even though I was gone for the fandom for years and years.
Awesome.
What are the main instruments that you play?
I sing a lot. I play guitar. I used to be able to play the trombone really well. I used to play up to like grade 7 level in UK music education. And
Was it like a
I
slide
play-
trombone?
yeah, slide trombone. I used to play it somewhat well. I used to play in like the school band, and I've played in like orchestras before. I also play samba music. I like learned to play Brazilian samba percussion. So that's really fun. Like playing various different percussion instruments, but I usually do like the bass drum that keeps the samba going, called the surdo. And I also play bass guitar. I play like some basic keyboard skills, and I just like learning instruments. I just like, I have like a cheap tin whistle in my room that I like to play every now and then. I have like a harmonica. I've got like a djembe in my room, which is like a West African drum. Like, I just love instruments. I love playing stuff.
Got a huge
Yeah,
range.
I really am a big fan of like your bossa nova stuff that you make. I think it's really really beautiful. Like, just really hits right listening to it.
Thank you. Yeah, I love bossa nova. Like, I learned a bunch of old bossa nova songs years and years ago, and I just have remembered to do it, and it's just like natural to me now. I can just play in that style very comfortably and learn Portuguese lyrics somewhat quickly. It's really fun.
Yeah, the Portuguese lyrics are so cool. Like, I think you did a set for
Acid
Acid
Unicorns.
Unicorns.
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing I really love about these old songs is how beautiful the lyrics are in Portuguese, what they mean, because they talk very directly about human emotions and how we experience them in a way that's so candid. And it's like, it's kind of rare to talk about lyrics that way in English music, where the lyrics may talk about like experiences that people have, but they don't directly refer to the concepts of emotions in the way that they do in Portuguese. Right. So it's really, yeah, like you can have whole songs where it's like, it's just like describing somebody's thought process of while they're going through a rough emotional time. And that's so beautiful when you read what the lyrics really mean and you sing them with that new passion afterwards. If you're a foreign speaker like me, since I don't actually speak Portuguese.
And it's all like accompanied by this like these very elegant chords, and I don't know, the vibe of bossa nova music just really like reaches out and grabs me every time I hear it.
It is, because it combines the beautiful interlocking rhythms of samba music, where you've got like your thumb plays the bass notes and your fingers play the rest of the chords in this pattern that resembles the claves that go through samba music. It's really, yeah, and you're playing loads of jazz chords, so they glide really elegantly from one to the other, like in old-fashioned jazz songs. So it's a hell of a vibe.
That's really cool. I have to say I don't know anything about bossa nova. The one song that I do know is that anime remix. You know, the Dead Man one.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what you mean when you refer to it that way. Like, maybe if I heard it, then I'd be able to say, "Oh yeah, I know that." But
I know that one, and it is very cute and a good song.
Anyway, yeah, I guess I'll send it to you after the podcast.
Yeah, go for it.
I'd personally recommend Touhou Bossa Nova. It's like made by a bunch of fans of like, you know, Touhou, like the Bullet Hell franchise.
Yeah, I know.
And there's so many volumes of this series where they just will like remix Touhou songs in like the Bossa Nova style, and it's just I could listen to it all day. Like it's really good.
Yeah, that sounds super fun.
All right.
Oh, yeah. So we need to know the important question. What's your favorite MLP character?
Yeah, so I think generally, all things considered, I'd probably say Fluttershy, just because like I resonate with her so much, and I have resonated with her so much over the years. My favorite character used to be Pinkie Pie back in the day, but gradually I've like found myself shifting more towards Fluttershy generally. But I also have an affinity with Rarity as well, just because like growing up I feel more and more like her, just like more passionately driven by creative stuff and secretly a bit of a drama queen sometimes.
Yeah,
those
are great choices.
Really good choices.
For the sake of brevity, let's say Fluttershy.
Yeah, I love Fluttershy. I have a little Fluttershy like plush that is like right above my steering wheel in my car, and she just sits and watches me drive all day, and it's great.
Oh my god, I would love that.
Yeah, I can like pat it on the head when I'm at stoplights and stuff. Like, it's pretty good.
That's adorable.
So
yeah, that was like that was something I bought at TrotCon. Like that was the first thing I bought at TrotCon.
I think
was
I
just
remember
that like little Fluttershy plushie. Yeah, I was carrying her around. Like the first day I was carrying her around on like a little like individual serving thing of like hummus and crackers, and she was just like, you know, on this little hummus journey with me the first day.
The hummus journey.
Yeah, that was great.
I have Fluttershy earrings as well.
Really? Like, are they of the entire pony? Like, what is the earring?
Yeah, they're literally just like pictures of Fluttershy that have been printed on some like sheets of metal, and they are dangling from earring hooks. So I just can walk around with little pictures of Fluttershy dangling from my earlobes.
That
And
makes me want to
honestly,
get my
there's
ears
such a
pierced.
mood.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Fluttershy is a popular character in the My Little Pony music scene for some reason. You know, there's
She has a beautiful voice.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the song Yellow Horse and
Yeah.
E48.
Mm-hmm.
They
Those are like
yeah.
two of the best pony music songs of all time, honestly.
Yeah, and they're
Those
both.
songs are so good.
And then that whole
Totally agreed.
album by Mathematicus about Fluttershy.
I have not heard that.
I forgot what it was called.
I still need to delve into the Mathematicus discog. I don't know as much as I should.
There's a lot I need to catch up on with My Little Pony fan music because of how long I was gone from the fandom, basically. But I know there's tons of great stuff out there that I just haven't taken the time to listen to and check out because it's like it came out so gradually over years. That's how I imagine people know it. But
Yeah.
it's hard to sit down and commit to listening to it all from an outsider's perspective in that way.
Right. I mean, I know
Yeah.
they're bringing back Balloon Party. Like, you mentioned that you were working on a
Yes.
track for that. Or I don't know what the
I
submission
am.
process is like, or like how it's that all works, but I don't know.
I think you just like say that you fill out a form saying you're going to participate in the album, and then you let people know of your intention on what you want to do. And then there's, I think, an email link or something to send your completed song to. And then it will go through moderation to see if they like want to include it amongst all the other submissions they'll get.
And isn't it about Fluttershy? Like,
Yes, it is, incidentally.
how relevant?
Like, it is. She's like, I think the point is it's meant to be Fluttershy in the Everfree Forest. It's like her exploring and discovering like the creatures and magic in this environment. That's all you really need to go off. That's just the thematic link for whatever you want to do. Just as long as it is thematically tied to those two things, that's all you need. And then you can just go and make what you want.
I really should make something for that. Like, that
Do
sounds
it.
like a
Go
lot of
for it.
fun. Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
am kind of busy now, like working on my set for the next Acid Unicorns, which is coming up this month.
Oh yeah. I want to do something for that. I don't need to. I just want to.
Did
I
you
have an
sign
idea.
up?
I did, yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Those
I
were
want
due
to do something
yesterday.
different this time, but I know what to do with the audio. I have no idea what to do for the video because I don't have a proper video editing software either. So I don't know what I'm gonna do for that, but I think I can put together the audio quite quickly.
Audio is
I can
great.
always make just quick visuals, like for
Yeah.
anyone that doesn't have any like editing software or anything like that. Like, I
That
can
would
throw
be
something
appreciated
together.
because
Yeah, I'm totally
I think
down.
it could like your video editing style could match what I've got in mind quite well.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Awesome. That sounds like a good collab.
Shoot me a message after the podcast.
I will,
And
yes.
we can work on it.
Yeah, totally.
I'm excited for that. That sounds great. Collab.
Yeah.
The dream collab.
And we also said that we'd collab on a song as well, like actually make a song together.
Yeah, we should. I do have like a long list of people that have said that they want to collab with me.
Okay, that is fair
But,
enough.
like, it's-
you're a popular person, I get it.
I mean, it's not like I have to go down that list in order. Like, if you really want to do it, you know, just like bug me about it and it'll happen. Anyways, we need to talk about sgap.
We do.
Yeah.
We start with...
Hang on.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, I was just saying, what's the next question?
Yeah,
Go on.
okay. So we start with a simple question which might be difficult to answer. The favorite and least favorite sgap song.
So they're different. They're difficult to answer for different reasons, because for my favorite song, it changes all the time, basically. Because I would have said Sorceress Girl when I first joined the Captive Unicorn server, and for a time it was almost like on my own, because like that song, like I feel like I almost have a conditioned response to cry when that song starts up and goes. But now I feel like it might be a tie between either Sorceress Girl or Space Pony, because I think Space Pony's just like a beautiful mini album that is so unique and so heartfelt and special that it sort of summarizes everything beautiful that sgap has done. And it's such a unique musical thing. There isn't anything else like it, really. And it means a lot to me, I think. So maybe Space Pony is it. But if you ask me again in a couple months' time, I might have changed my mind.
Yeah.
And I don't know what my least favorite sgap song is, in all honesty, because there's a bunch of them, like the more obscure, like the collabs and stuff like that. I haven't listened to all of those, so I don't know. Can I think about it for a moment?
Sure.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that like On My Own and Space Pony are definitely like up there for me in my top sgap songs, and like I've definitely cycled between both of them as like my favorite. But I think it's like the natural sort of response to have, where you're just constantly changing your favorite song, because you know we're all constantly changing as people, and like, you know, as a result,
Totally.
you're gonna change what songs resonate with you the most.
Exactly. That's why it's difficult to settle on one definitive answer.
Yeah.
And I really don't know how to answer the least favorite one, in all honesty.
There's nothing that
because
sticks
it's
out
like,
to you?
honestly, no. It's like I have a sort of like a pantheon of favorites of songs that he made, and other songs that are just like, generally I like them, and then there's just those that I know a bit less well. And the thing is, the less interested I am in them, then the less interested I am in sort of like ranking them and saying this one's the worst.
Yeah.
I totally get that.
So that's why I don't have an answer. Instead of an answer, you're going to have a justification for me not giving an answer.
That's totally fine and understandable. Like,
That's all good, yeah.
I don't like picking least
Cool.
favorites either.
I will say
Awesome.
we, like, I didn't really participate in this, but there was this really chaotic call on the server, like, maybe half a month ago, where people were making tier lists of their favorite sgap songs. And
I think I noticed this in the call chat at one point. Yeah.
people were posting their personal ones, but they were also doing like a collective one of like the entire call, and they were just going through each song and
Wow.
like ranking them and like putting them up against other ones, and it was just like nonstop screaming and people being really passionate about their favorite and like least favorite songs, and a lot of people
Oh my
going
God.
like, what? How could you think that about this one? This one is like so good. And like, I don't know.
Yeah,
It was fun.
God, that's like anarchy. Which one won? Which one came out on top?
I never actually
I don't think
looked
anyone-
at the tier lists, because like I was on like a long car ride when I was listening into all
Oh,
of this.
okay.
And I would leave for like, 30 minutes or so to listen to music or something, and then I'd come back and people would still be screaming and arguing over
Oh,
sgap
God.
songs.
it lasted for so long. Actually, I know that day was when we recorded Olivia's podcast, and It was like right after we'd finished recording, and I dropped into there. And yeah, the nonstop screaming, I managed to record like 10 minutes of it. I never uploaded it anywhere, but maybe I will do that since we're talking about it.
It was a good time.
It was a great, yeah.
That sounds hilarious, but I would never be able to participate in that because my brain would just not be able to interpret all this screaming as anything meaningful. My brain's just so bad with like overload in that way.
Yeah, I mean, we did recently add like a smaller voice channel just so people don't get overwhelmed, and I might add like another one just in case there wants to be like multiple little groups. But I think recently people have been getting really passionate about things, and when there's like 10 people in one call, it can just go haywire really quick.
Well, what happened when the last episode was just recently posted of this podcast? Like Olivia said at the very end, like, please get in touch with me if you want to talk about any more of this, and I immediately did, because I like listening through the podcast, I was just like saying, man, I wish I was in this conversation so I could go bounce off of her points and just talk to her. So we actually did. We just hung out in the call chat for a couple of hours or so, and she mentioned this idea saying it would be a cool thing if we just had like smaller chats so people can focus one-on-one or like in small groups. Because of me saying, I focus better in small groups in that sort of way. So I appreciate that. For
sure. I think the only downside to it so far is like if people are in like the small group, which is like locked at 4 people, and then there's like a 5th person, and it's only like 5 people that want to be talking, and then they have to just awkwardly sit in one of the other channels waiting for someone to leave, or they just like can't get in. I know. So it's like
true.
I'm still trying to figure out how to find a solution to that, but yeah, it's working. It's working fine so far.
It's amazing that
it's a good idea.
It's amazing that our community is this like thriving and active for us to have to make these decisions.
Yeah, it really is.
That's a good sign. It's a sign of a healthy culture.
Yeah, it's good to have an overwhelming amount of people, I'd say, that are very passionate about the same thing. That's like really special.
Yeah.
Well, how do you think you'd describe the so great and powerful genre, Avery?
Okay, so this is a difficult question again, but it's like it depends on how we want to define what genre is, because like I'd say some people classify genre as like ways of classifying music for the sake of not just describing a music scene where people have characteristics in quality, but it's all in common, but it's also like for a commodity, because like I think genres exist in some capacity for record stores, because it's like they would sort albums and singles by genre. So if you want to find some rock music, you know where to look, because that's the sort of sound that you'll be after. If you want some hip hop, if you want some classical or dance music, whatever, then there's these very broad categories of genres that you can sort through. But when it comes to the internet, and I think the My Little Pony music scene, genres matter less than individual artists. Because when you have someone like So Great and Powerful, it's like he's got influence from so many different styles that it's like, what would you even describe this as? And what's the utility of trying to put a genre label on it? Because he's so eclectic, but in a homogenous way, if you know what I mean. Because his songs have a collection of different stylistic influences all at once. Like you can hear the influence of sort of Latin music, you can hear influence from electronic music and like sort of complextro, that kind of thing, with the sampling and plunderphonics, but also like tender songwriting as well, and sort of progressive song structures where you have like non-repeating sections and the songs don't follow a sort of like straight verse chorus format or an AABA format. They're more sprawling. And it's like, what do you even describe that as in terms of a genre? Because I don't think it matters as much. That's my approximation of an answer, because otherwise you're going to have to make stuff up to, try and squash this eclectic mix into one word or one catchy term.
I really love that answer. I think because genre itself is so like fluid and ever changing, and it's a good question to ask because everyone has a different answer. I mean, that's why we ask it every time.
Yeah, and I think, like, I don't know, if we want to get down to the linguistic root of what genre even means, I think it's like descended from the same word as gene, like genus, and like the genes in your body, and like maybe the word gender as well. I don't know for certain, but it means just sort of like type, category.
Wow.
So is that useful to consider when we're trying to talk about So Great and Powerful? Maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe
that's it. That's a really interesting
I can't tell
connection.
if I've given the most insightful or the most pretentious answer to that question ever.
No, I don't think it's pretentious at all. That's probably
good.
like, no offense to the other podcast guests, but that is probably my favorite answer so far to that question. I think it's the most accurate.
Oh, thanks.
You give a lot of insight as well to like like record stores and stuff. Like, I guess that does make a lot of sense as to why they would want to categorize things back in like when record stores were like how you would purchase and consume music, I guess. But I think in the era of the internet, it's not really like it doesn't really need to exist in the same way that it has. Like, people are able to just like make their music that they want to make and wear their inspirations like very openly and just put it out there. Like sgap being someone that has never put their stuff on streaming services or anything like that, he's probably not thinking about what the genre is. He's probably just making it to make it, and is being inspired by the stuff that he likes and is just trying to do his own thing. So I don't know if it's really necessary to use genres when talking about him, but I liked the inspirations that you listed off. Like,
yeah,
he's definitely very
like the way,
clearly.
That's the way I sort of tend to classify music. I tend to think of it more as like, where did this come from? What's the musical scene that this grew from? Like, is it a regional place from some country, or is this like a smaller scene within a city? And if it's not, then it could be on the internet, which is the case with So Great and Powerful. That's why, like, you've got the My Little Pony music scene, which transcends continents and countries, although a lot of it is based in the USA and Canada and the UK.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, when I think of music, I don't always think of, like, rock and pop and hip hop, even though that's useful to... It's like, it's also just like, where did it come from? Who was involved? I think of it in that way as well.
Yeah, for sure. And like, you can, like you said, that you can find inspirations, like sgap's inspirations from all different sorts of genres and backgrounds and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that might be part of what makes his music so great, like he is incorporating all of the best elements of like very different genres
like
and music backgrounds.
To it and you can hear that he loves music when he's making it as well.
Yeah.
He loves music and he cares. He wants to make something good.
Absolutely, yeah. I was listening to this album recently, Glass Swords by Rusty, and
yes.
I think I forget who mentioned it in relation to sgap, but
I think that was me.
Really? Good.
Well, okay, so this is going to link into another question that I know you're going to ask me.
Yeah.
Because you're going to ask me, like, how did I discover sgap, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll answer that now, and I'll say, like, I discovered him first of all when I was browsing Equestria Daily back in 2011. And it was like, I saw A Beautiful Heart had just been posted to Equestria Daily. So I decided to check it out, and I really liked it because I liked the way that he did the vocal chops and arranged them, and I thought that was really cool. And I commented on his video for A Beautiful Heart saying, hey, this is really cool. This is like, this sounds sort of similar to Burial and Todd Edwards, because they're like two musicians who do the same sort of thing. They cut apart vocals and make new melodies and like sort of vocables that don't form proper lyrics, but they sound like they express something emotionally. And I said, it's really good that you do that. And he responded to my comment saying, that he was influenced by Rusty.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. Oh my God. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I never had sat down to listen to the album, and it's so clear like that he is inspired by it, and you can definitely make like the parallels, like particularly in Rusty's song Globes off that album. That song,
I think I saw your post on that.
Yeah, it's such a direct inspiration for like the part that comes in maybe 3/4 through A Beautiful Heart. Like it sounds so similar, but he's not just copying it. Like he's clearly just, you know, he's doing it in his own way.
Yeah, it's like he's building on it for his own purposes.
Yeah, and in like the way that section in A Beautiful Heart fits like with the rest of the song is just so seamless and so perfect. It's such a great like build up, that section.
It is.
I just didn't know how similar it was to that Rusty song. So I definitely recommend people listen to that album because it's very good. A lot of like interesting ideas thrown around, and I think that album is probably like the catalyst for a lot of these like a lot of the specific genres that came around in like the SoundCloud scene like 2012 2013, because Rusty was, I guess, like doing it first and like just making this crazy shit that no one's ever like thought of or heard before.
Yeah, like what I said about genres, I think Rusty's doing, or he was doing that too. Back when he was releasing Glass Swords, he had a lot of eclectic influences too and blended them together in one unique sound.
Yeah.
And So Great and Powerful heard that, and he kind of decided to do his own version of that, based in My Little Pony too.
Definitely. I think that is most certainly the case. And I wanted to also mention, like you brought up Todd Edwards, and he is someone that I've like delved into recently, and his stuff is so otherworldly and just amazing.
It's really like funky.
Yeah.
And like it's really funky and driving, but there's these vocal cuts that are taken from like soul records and things like that. And it's not like how you hear it in sort of like hip-hop or rave music where it's sort of like sped up or something or used entirely as a hook. He sort of cuts them apart and then stitches them together in different ways, and it sounds really like a bit like the sort of So Great and Powerful vibe, but not quite as cut up as that. But it's like, I think Todd Edwards is also like really religious, like he's a devout Christian. Yeah, so it's like he's trying to create sort of religious ecstasy with his music as well. And he sort of does that with the vocal samples and the sampling throughout his music.
Yeah. I remember watching one of his Boiler Room sets, and he has like a cross chain like around his neck, just like holding it out in front of him, dancing to like one of his songs that samples like a bunch of Christian related stuff. I don't know. I think it's great. I obviously, you know, like personally I am non-religious, but I think religious music and music that is influenced by religion is some of like the most powerful sounding stuff sometimes.
I know what you mean. Like, I'm not any fixed religion either. Like I have like bits of influences from some religion, like a bit of Buddhism and a bit of paganism, but like I'm not devoted to any religion, but I can listen to the music that is like from these sorts of backgrounds, or like Christian, like classical hymns, that sort of music. Like I grew up with like hymns in church, and I used to like go to hymns and carol services when I was a kid, and like that's a big influence on the way that I make music now, because it's like you hear this sort of like reverberant vocals, and I do a lot of that with my own music too. And that's just sort of like the religious practice gives rise to really great music.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
people would sort of like make this music meaning to try and honor God or the gods of their religion. And it's appealing to some sort of higher power, and it makes great music.
Yeah, I think religion and music have been linked, like, as long as music has been, like, recorded and documented. Like, it's always been hand in hand.
Like loads of music practices are done as part of religious rituals as well.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's a very human thing to do, to make music and to be religious in that way, I think.
Right, and I think that really, like, it really, like, contributes to a lot of, like, the magic and Todd Edwards stuff. I would highly recommend people go on YouTube and just look up Todd Edwards and scroll down and just listen to the random things that he's made, because there's a lot of it that is not, like, ever officially released. Maybe only on like vinyls or something, but it is amazing. Like
I completely agree.
If anyone doesn't know, like he does the vocals and a substantial amount of the samples on Face to Face, the Daft Punk song off of Discovery. And that's how I first heard of him, and that's how I'm sure a lot of people were first introduced to him. But he really like made that song, like, with the crazy sample choices. Like, I remember when I first heard that song, just being blown away by how cohesive all the samples together sounded, but just how you could tell that they're just from a variety of different sources. And so much so that people are still finding samples from it to this day. Like, last year there were like 2 or 3 new samples found from that song, just because like he gets them from like of just the craziest places, and like people don't know what they are. Like, you know, he doesn't tell anybody, he just like makes the music. But yeah,
I didn't even know that level of detail with Todd Edwards. That's great. I'm definitely going to look him up a bit more now, because I only knew him mostly as like an inspiration for Burial, who I also mentioned earlier, because I really like Burial, his music. But it's like Todd Edwards is sort of like one of the people who's been doing this for like since the 90s at least. And I guess he's still going, if you said he did a Boiler Room set. So it's like, I guess this is like the lineage of the genre of So Great and Powerful, if that's what we want to call it. This sort of tradition of plunderphonics.
Yeah, I mean, you can look back and see a lot of these artists that are doing very like plunderphonic sounding stuff, like very early on, like maybe not as early as the 90s like Todd Edwards, but I've mentioned before that Sora Webb on SoundCloud, like he was making stuff that sounds very reminiscent of sgaps, like vocal choppy sort of stuff, and it was in like the early 2000s, like 2003 2004 he was making this sort of stuff. And you know, you can look back and find stuff that is sort of captures the same like soul of sgap's music, but is like old, like made a long time ago. But you know, it is hard. You do have to dig a bit deep to find it.
I know. Yeah, there's a lot of hidden music in that kind of way. You can always dig a bit deeper and find obscure stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people have done that same thing, but have found sgap like through trying to dig through like weird obscure stuff. I know a lot of the new people in the server have just been like trying to like go back and listen to all the important pony music, and that's how they've found sgap like recently.
Wow.
Because they missed out on the past, and like now's their time, I guess, to find it and like fall in love with it for the first time. So that's always fun.
And I think that's beautiful. the fact that it can repeat in that sort of way, that people recognize this is a part of the scene that happened in the past and it's gone on to influence people. Whereas, like, from my perspective, I was just around when it was coming out, and it was like, I really like this guy. I really like what he's doing. Like, this music is so passionate. This music is really good. And of course, I was too young to really understand what the lyrics meant in his songs, but it's been really lovely to revisit So Great and Powerful as well, after having joined the server, essentially. Because before then, I just thought back to the My Little Pony music scene, and I was like, So Great and Powerful, yeah, he was definitely my favourite. That's how I used to view it, and now it's like I'm taking it more seriously, and it's like, this guy was great. He made some really wonderful music.
Yeah, I think I've always viewed him, like, ever since I found his music, as just being, like, the best pony musician, like, the one to, like, just do it right, to just like capture that sort of magic that it was to be in the fandom early, which, you know, I pretty much missed out on because I joined the fandom like late 2012. So, you know, I didn't.
Well, I'd say it was like still going by that point.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
But it wasn't like I missed out on like the era that sgap was making like the standard model during, you know, like. That's what I'm referring to, I guess.
But that's only a year later. There was still plenty happening at that time, so
yeah,
don't feel bad about it.
I mean, I don't feel bad about it because I have that project, you know, the standard model to feel that sort of like experience. Like I can just go to that anytime.
Absolutely, it's like evokes that time so perfectly. That, like, when I did revisit all of this stuff, it was just like a wave of nostalgia hit me, and it's like, oh my god, like, what a time that was to live through.
Yeah.
It is the perfect mood music for that feeling.
I feel like some people question, like, especially people that have been listening to him for a while, like, if they are blinded by nostalgia and it actually being good or not. But I think that the proof that it is really good is that we're constantly getting like a new people that are finding it and are going like, oh my god, this is like unlike anything I've ever heard, and are like having the same sort of reactions to it that, you know, like the old heads like, did back then.
It's genuinely good music, I think.
Yeah,
it's not just nostalgia. It's not like, oh, I remember when I was 17 listening to this for the first time. It's like I can sit down and appreciate it as a piece of music because it's good music.
Right.
And I think I've heard some people say that it sort of gives them nostalgia for a time that they never lived in, which is really interesting.
Yeah, it definitely has that sort of feeling, but I wouldn't I wouldn't be able to know that fully just because, like, in 2013 when I first found his stuff, I just listened to all of it immediately, and then I've been following all the new stuff since, so I wouldn't really know what it's like to listen to a sgap song for the first time or have that sort of experience, but that's all fine.
Yeah.
That's all good. Well, I think it is time for a little tea break.
That's fine by me. Yeah.
Daniel, do you have the tea?
Yep, I just poured it. You didn't hear it?
No.
No, I didn't.
I guess it didn't want to go through the mic this time.
All right, let me try again.
Maybe Discord cut it out. There it is. Yeah, I heard it that time.
I think I recorded the previous sound of you pouring tea, so you can use that one instead if you want.
Good.
All right.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll take a little break and I'll come back in like 5 minutes.
Cool. We'll be back.
Okie dokie.
Okay, I'll be RB. And we're oh shit, I just dropped my phone. And we're back.
Oh no. Okay.
We are back in action.
All right.
Yeah.
So, the next question, we're back to sgap, is what is the significance of this music in your life?
Yeah, and I thought about it just now when I went away for the little intermission break, and essentially I realized that I have a bit of a story to tell about this.
Oh.
So
Let's hear it.
I guess I'm gonna mention like some details along the way, like because it's a bit like embellishments and also sort of bragging rights as well, but it forms part of the story, and it's like I mentioned earlier how I discovered So Great and Powerful through A Beautiful Heart. And it's like, I was also making music at the time myself with the My Little Pony music community. Like, I used to make my own music back then too, and I'd post it on SoundCloud and YouTube, and very rarely it would get posted on Equestria Daily. And I was also featured on the Smile album, where Sorceress Girl originally cropped up. I was one of the musicians featured on that, and I heard Sorceress Girl, and I thought it was really beautiful, like one of the best songs on the whole album. Which, by the way, if you haven't listened to the Smile album, there are some really great songs on that, like just generally. I really recommend listening to it, because it's like a snapshot of what the pony community was like back then, like this sort of gentle side of the fandom that's different to the sort of like more dubstep sort of sounds that we associate with what it was like back then. But Sorceress Girl was just one of the tracks on that album, and at the same time as that came out, there was also the song Dashi / Hearth Swarming Eve.
Uh-huh.
And for years and years, that was like my favourite My Little Pony fan song at all. And I really love that song. It's sort of like, it's still now, like, I still really love it, but I had a really sort of nostalgic glow feel from it. But I also love the structure of it, how it's split into two halves, and it sort of progresses from this like slower part at the beginning to this sort of like more mid-tempo part at the end. And it sort of made me think that I should try harder with my own music when I make it, because even though I was happy making music about ponies, it was like I thought I should try harder and make something that was really good like that. So what I ended up doing is I made a song for the Soft Spectrum album that came out in 2012, which was like a community album themed around the concept of being chill music that you can just put on, and it's like it barely even has to be pony at all. And I did make a song for that album, and it was featured on it, and it's like the song itself is called Only Time Will Tell on that album, Soft Spectrum album, and I was really proud of it when I did it, because it's like it's an 8-minute long song, and it's like got multiple sections in it. It's got like odd time signatures at points, and like key changes, harmonic progressions, lots of instruments, and I was really inspired by So Great and Powerful to make that. And the thing is, like, I made that song for that album, and years later, after I had left the My Little Pony fandom and I had gone through so much in my life, years and years later, I was like, I had a job, I was completely distant from the fandom, but I decided to Google my artist name and just see what search results came back. And I Googled myself in that way, and I found a Tumblr blog by Sumasis saying, gosh, I wonder what happened to Dead Name. And that was me that she was talking about.
Wow.
And I was like, I got in touch with her on Twitter eventually.
Just cut off.
And
I think you just cut out for like 10 or so seconds.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like I got in touch with her over Twitter after like I found out that she basically asked what happened to me. But at the same time as this was happening was the same time that I was coming out as transgender myself. Mm-hmm. And it was like I basically got in touch with her, and I got in touch with Maddie Tomlin as well, because like we used to be in contact back in the day as well. Like her song Foothold was also featured on Soft Spectrum too, and it's like I got in touch with them, and it was like through their contact over Twitter that I found out about Dust Car, basically, when it started up again. Because Maddie was sort of like enthusiastically tweeting about how exciting it was to just make music for the sake of it, for not having any expectations about what's going to happen to the music. It's just like, here's a deadline, make something. And I was like, oh yeah, I miss Toastbeard so much, because I used to be part of the Toastbeard. And she was like, oh, no. It's back. It's a new thing now. It's Dust Car. So I joined the server and I started making music again. So that was really like nourishing for my soul in a way, because I'd been meaning to make music for such a long time. But then I sort of like talked with Kylie over Discord, and it was like she basically said that like my song on the Soft Spectrum album was her favourite song off of that album, and that was the reason why she made that Tumblr post about me at all. And the only reason why I made that song was because it's so great and powerful. And then she linked me to the Captive Unicorns server, which is what brought me to the server in general, and has given me just sort of like a community to take part in, where I can make music and where I can communicate with people and vent about personal stuff and find the space to, come out more as like even more trans, I guess, and just like feel like I'm a part of something. And it's helped me keep going through the pandemic, in all honesty, because like I wasn't doing that great when I first joined Captive Unicorns and Dust Car back in 2020, because it was just like I didn't know what to do, because you're just like in the middle of the pandemic and you're just like, I don't have anything going on in my life right now.
Right.
But making music again has really inspired me and helped me gain more direction in how I can progress forward through my life. And having people just who are so nice and so much like me has been such a huge like way of bearing the mental load of going through what I've been going through. So indirectly, So Great and Powerful had a really big impact on my life as of recently, and as of that period in the past, around 2011 to 2012 to 13-ish. And yeah, it's so weird knowing that things have come full circle in that way.
That's a really cool story. I had no clue about any of that, honestly. That's really awesome.
Yeah, that's such a long journey too.
I know, right? It's like a Chekhov's gun. Like they put the Chekhov's gun at the start of the story, and it's like keeps going, and then you're like, oh shit, now it's paid off. And it's like, yeah, it's been strangely influential all this time. Because, I don't know, like, being in the My Little Pony community when I was such a unique and strange experience, because it's like, it was only about a year and a half of my life that I was properly deeply into the fandom, maybe like 2 years maximum, but it left a very big impact on me, because it was just like a thing that I was hugely involved in, and it was like a huge boost to my like morale and my mental health, because it felt like I was a part of a really thriving community of artists online, and we were all into the same sort of stuff. And I really felt welcome in it. And when you've distanced yourself from that and experienced massive depression and had to recover from that depression afterwards in your life, and you discover that the community is still there after all these years and you can reconnect with people, it's really a trippy, magical experience, in all honesty.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I know personally that, like, if it weren't for being in the My Little Pony community, I would not be, like, friends with some of my favorite people on this earth, like, it was absolutely the thing that just weirdly caused me to, like, meet all these people and just, like, make all these connections to all these like just wonderful people, like just people that care about me and like lift me up and just, I don't know, are nice.
Yeah.
Especially like the server recently, like I'm really happy with how things are going in it, just because I feel like it's welcoming and it's like a positive aspect in a lot of people's lives, which is just really cool and kind of, like you said, like magical, you know, really fun to see.
It's community, and
yeah,
in this modern day and age, community can be hard to find sometimes, especially if you're like, well, I guess we're all somewhat introverted and probably nerdy people as well. And finding community when you're that kind of person can be kind of hard. But it's like we have enough like-minded qualities that we gravitate towards something like My Little Pony, where it's like, it's almost not about the cartoon. It's almost not about My Little Pony itself. It's just about meeting people and having those connections, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. I think MLP is just the thing that like everyone has in common, or like specifically in the sgap server, it's just like enjoying sgap's music is what everyone has in common. It's just something that is able to like bind everybody. But it's not always the point of conversation. Like I'd say at this point everyone is just friends with each other, you know.
Totally, yeah. And it's so wholesome that something like that can exist nowadays, when it feels like there's so many negative communities on the internet as well, so many negative environments, so much like toxic space.
Absolutely.
When in contrast to that, you can find some genuinely nice people, and it almost takes you a moment to just sort of like open up and come to trust me, because it's like, wait, these people are just nice. They do seem to have each other's best interests at heart, and then you can start talking and making friends genuinely. I love that.
Yeah,
it's really something special.
I liked what you said about earlier about how the online communities have helped you through like difficult times, you know, because with 2020 and everything that went down during that year, I feel like that might be the reason our server is experiencing like a sort of resurgence.
Yeah.
Because people
are
just looking so hard for connection and you know, trying to find it wherever they can amidst like hard times.
Well, yeah. I mean, what do you do when you can't go outside? You're just stuck with yourself and the possessions you have around you, maybe the people if you live with other people. But the internet is the way people have managed to plug the gap. Like, I think I've noticed that internet communities in general are becoming way more common in the wake of the pandemic. Like, everybody's been using Zoom and they've been using Skype and Discord a lot more, and it's like they're learning to connect in the way that I guess us nerds have learned to do in the past. Because like, I was doing this back in the day. I was doing this over Skype.
Right.
Same,
you know, you'd hang out in Skype calls and talk and chat through text and get involved with stuff on different websites. But now people are doing that, like normal people are doing that. And it's...
Right.
Yeah, the pandemic has paradoxically made people get closer in that sort of way because of circumstances that are beyond their control.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember like I think I had to have been in middle school or like early high school. Some teacher was bringing up some negative comment about meeting people online. Like, that used to be such a common opinion, like, oh, like, how do you know it's not like some 40-year-old in their basement or something like that?
Right.
And like, I was like standing up for myself in class saying like, no, I've made like meaningful connections like with people online. This was like, you know, like 2013, 2014, like early Skype days for me, like when I would be in like all those Skype groups with weird random bronies. And made some of my friends for life from that era. And people like the way they were looking at me like seemed like they thought I was weird for feeling that way and for thinking that way. And I've had friends where like I bring up, I like talk to these people online, and then they just tell me straight up like, that's weird, like I don't know about that. And like now everyone is kind of forced to do it whether they like it or not, and it's such a normal thing now, and it's like people are finally seeing how meaningful and like helpful it can actually be, like for someone's like social life and just well-being. I don't know.
You're so right about the stigma that used to be. I mean, growing up, like learning about internet safety, which is really important, of course, but it sort of overshadowed the capability of the internet to create these connections, especially for people who can't or find it difficult to make connections in real life. Like you were calling us like nerds, but
well, I'm not saying you're nerds in condescending ways.
No.
It's like I'm autistic, and I feel like a lot of the people in the server are probably neurodivergent as well. We communicate in this sort of way a bit better. I don't want to speak for either of you two about that, but it's like I feel like there's more of that commonality between fans of My Little Pony.
Yeah, I mean, I have noticed that too. Our server is also queer and neurodivergent.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say overwhelmingly so.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, how can it not be?
for an interest like sgap, I mean, if you are in this server, you've most likely either fell into it from being in the sgap, or like you've sought it out because you want to talk to people that are also in the sgap. And being really into sgap, like, is not a normal thing. It's not like a universally shared experience. It's a very niche. So like that's gonna attract a certain type of people. But I think it's great. I mean, we're accepting of all people that like want to join and be a part of the community, unless you're like a piece of shit or something. But it works out well, I think.
Yeah, like even I remember, I think in 2013, maybe 2012, like I went to visit an online friend from the My Little Pony community when I was living in halls of residence at uni, and I went to get the train up to Dundee to go visit him, but like I guess my flatmates in the halls of residence, they were just like, "You've never met this guy in person?" I was like, "No." It's like, "Well, how do you know who he is then?" It's like, because we've talked to each other, because like we've been in voice calls, we know each other, and I met him in person, and lo and behold, he was like who he said he was.
Yeah.
People are just, I think people have that sort of reflexive instinct when it's been drilled into them in that sort of way, and if they're sort of neurotypical extroverted people, then they've never had to challenge that. They've never had to be in a situation where they spend hours hanging out online and that's the way they meet people. They just go outside with people who they've met in person, or they go to bars or whatever. I don't know. I'm not one of that kind of people. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, I don't know how that works. Yeah, I mean, I've met up with lots of people that I've met online, and I've never had an experience where it's not the person that they say they are. Like, I think that's mostly because most of the people I talk to, like, it's in voice, and like a lot of the times there's cameras, so it's like, what are you, is this like are you gonna stage an elaborate hoax where you have someone acting as yourself or something? Like, it just doesn't happen. Like, I think it's really easy to tell, like, oh, this is like a genuine real person I'm talking to. And if you've never experienced that sort of interaction before, then I guess I can understand why people would be apprehensive to it. But I don't know.
Mm-hmm. It's also such a new thing, like the internet. I mean, it's been around a couple decades now, but like that's still relatively new.
Yeah,
it's been going since like the late 80s, I think, in the form that it takes now. But yeah, like the fears were not unfounded that people were talking about before, but it's like people who seek out So Great and Powerful and My Little Pony are like, if it's something as niche as So Great and Powerful, then people are only going to bother if they're genuinely interested.
Right. Absolutely. I think circling back to the server, like for me personally, being part of this community has been sort of an awakening for me, like in terms of my identity as queer and neurodivergent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still sort of reckoning with that, and the server has helped me a lot in, you know, the way you talk so openly about being trans and autistic. I really envy that, because I find it really hard still to like talk about these aspects of myself.
I mean, I'm also 27 years old, so I feel like I'm older than a lot of the other people on the server. It's like what we mentioned in the preamble before recording the podcast. It's like you get older and you just care less. It's like, I've gone through the phases of denial and guilt over feeling guilty about being autistic and queer and everything around that. And it's just like, I just want to tell people who and what I am. And if they're that sort of person, they will respond. And if they think I'm weird or they just don't get it, then I don't care what that person has to say about me. I'll just move on. Because it's like, you know, there's always another person out there who is going to be like you, or someone who's just going to not be like you. I used to feel like I was so alone, like I couldn't relate to anybody, like there was nobody in the world who was like me out there. But I've been proven wrong time and time again, that it's like I can rely on that. I can rely on being able to find other people who are like me, and that empowers me to open up about this and to say, yeah, I am autistic, actually. I won't look you in the eye. I feel no obligation to do that. And why, yes, I am one of them transes. I am perfectly proud to be that. And don't I look fucking good in this dress? So yeah, like, that's my attitude, and I hope other people can embody that too, I think. Like,
I think the server has definitely, like, opened up a lot of people to like accepting who they really are and just being okay with that. And I think that's like just a really nice sort of vibe to have. Like, there's been so many people that have came out like since they joined the server. It's very common.
Imagine, oh my god, like imagine how it felt for me when I was reconnecting with like the My Little Pony community after having been away from it for like 5 to 6 years or something, and then I come back and it's like all these old names I knew from back in the day. Like I sort of knew Samasis, I knew Maddie, I knew of Cherax Destructor, and like it's like, wait, were we all girls all along? Is that what it was this whole time? It's such a mind fuck, but it's like,
it's just the thing that happens to pony musicians.
Yeah,
exactly.
As Cherax Destructor has eloquently put it. It's just the thing that happens.
And here we are staring up at the same rainbow, you know? It's literally like that scene in the Cutie Mark Chronicles.
Oh my
like
God.
A single event, you know, binding everybody together. Like, So Great and Powerful referenced that in his song, and it's just like, it's such a fucking weird thing to understand that that's basically what happened in real life. Like, some aspects of the plot of the show actually played out in real life like that. We all had a special connection before we even met each other, and we didn't even know it. Right?
Wow, you're so right.
Can you imagine that?
That is pretty beautiful, honestly.
Amazing.
Yeah, like that's literally the quote in the show, in that episode.
The Sorceress Girl as well. One of the versions had that lyric, right?
Yes, and it's like I recently like re-listened to Sorceress Girl when I listened to the last episode of this podcast, and I really liked your take on that, Daniel, where you said like it's basically a trans girl song, and it's like I'd never thought of that before. I'd never thought of that interpretation, but then I went to listen to the song again, and I was like, I think you're right. I think this is like what it feels like to come out and to feel so beautifully feminine and authentic with yourself. And it's like, I dig that. I don't know if that's what David meant when he wrote the song, but the interpretation applies very neatly, and I really like it.
I'm so glad that resonated.
Yeah.
And that was the album that you were on too, the Smile album.
I know, right? Yeah. I mean, it was the
crazy.
different version of the song that that lyric isn't on the Smile version of the album.
Oh, really? Okay.
But at least I don't think it is, but it's like definitely on the other one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's what is so crazy to me. Like, time is just like, it just goes round in circles, and it's so weird.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should ask the big question, which is, can you tell us about the thesis that you're working on? We all want to hear about it.
Okay, so what I'm intending to do is to basically interview a bunch of people who have been active in the My Little Pony scene over the years, because I want to write about the My Little Pony fan community, basically. And music community in specific, because I study a degree called ethnomusicology at university. Like, it's a master's degree that I'm doing, and it essentially means like the study of music culture from all over the world. And traditionally that would mean like, you know, European or Western researchers going to countries that are considered non-Western. Like, you could go to North India and you could like write about how North Indian classical music works, that kind of thing. But nowadays, ethnomusicology has a much more broad meaning in terms of like just any music that's considered off the grid generally. Because like I wrote a sort of like a transcription and analysis of a piece of footwork music. Like, I analysed a DJ Rashad song.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and that got a good grade because, like, the lecturer said, you know, this is unconventional, but you're right. Like, this is, like, pretty non-traditional in terms of what we consider westernized music to be. So it was like I did something about that, and over the course of the pandemic, I realized, actually, nobody's written about the My Little Pony music community at all in academic texts or anything. And there's only basically an oral history of this fandom having ever existed at all, apart from like the files and like forum posts that exist on old websites. But the way I see it is like, information on the internet, you have to protect it. You've got to actively cultivate it and look after it, which is why there's like so many archives of deleted My Little Pony music from back in the day, because so many people deleted their songs, including So Great and Powerful. People had to keep that music alive. So it's like, I want to talk to people, having myself been a part of that old music scene. We'll have some common ground, and I want to talk to people and just sort of like pick their brains and ask them the questions of like, how did the scene work, and what did people do to interact with each other? How did they generate music, and what significance do things like, you know, gender roles and like nationality, all of that, play in the making of this music, while it was collaborative in a way over the internet? Because, like I said, no one's written this down. If there could just be like some sort of written record to prove that it existed, and you can use that as a case example to talk about online music communities, then that would make a great thesis, in my opinion. So that's what I intend to do, to talk to people and interview them and figure this out and write it up.
Wow.
Yeah, that sounds like a really great idea and just like a really interesting thing to do as a thesis. I definitely recommend, if you haven't already seen it, to watch. It's this 9-minute short little mini documentary by Jeff Burgess called Brony's Subculture and Brony Music Fandom. And
I haven't seen that. No.
It's something he made in 2015 as a thesis film for like his university that he was going to. And it is just like it's just like a close look at Brony musicians that were at this like one convention that he filmed, and they sort of talk about their experiences with being into Brony music, and it just is this nice little showcase and nice little light put on to the sort of thing you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to watch that.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it.
And there's like a bunch of other stuff that exists as well. Like there's the Brony History Music podcast, where it's like
I don't know about that.
Cha talked about it in the panel at TrotCon. Because you know that panel happened, it was recorded.
Yes, I recorded
it. They talk about this podcast. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was there.
Okay. Yeah, you were there. I wasn't, but like but Cha mentioned this, and I decided to look it up as soon as I saw that in the recording. And there is this podcast where someone is going and doing essentially what I've been doing and tracking down old musicians, like interviewing Odyssey Eurobeat and Mike the Microphone and people like that, and just getting them to talk about what the scene was like. And it's full of cool information like that. And essentially I'm going to ask the coordinator of that podcast if I can just use that, quotes from it as part of my text for the thesis, because it's like you can draw so much information from that. So I'm not alone in wanting to do stuff like this. Like that podcast is going, Cha and like all the other people who were involved in that project are doing similar things too, but I'm just doing it academically, and I get to like have a official printed copy as well.
Yeah. I was like, that was probably the first thing I thought of when you started talking about this, was like, I think probably podcast interviews would be the best source of like primary information or whatever.
Exactly.
For all this stuff.
So yeah, there's tons of information out there, but I also want to contact other people who've been involved in different sort of roles over the years, I guess, of the fan community, and just to get their input, because while I've got my own experience, I want to hear from a lot of different people too. I want to cast a wide net and to hear back from people who've, like, because I've got big gaps in my information. I don't know everything that happened. There's a bunch of stuff that I did miss out on from even being part of that music scene back in the day. So it's like I want to hear as much as I can and to put it together into a cohesive piece of informative writing. That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
I think there are quite a few like people that were musicians back in the day that are currently in the server that would be more than willing to talk to you about their involvement in it. Like I know we have like BBC Toll, Voodoo Pony, Aftermath, like to name a few that I'm sure would be more than willing to help you out, just because I don't know, it sounds like such a great idea for a thesis. Just like I totally want to read it like once it's all done. Like it sounds great.
Yeah, I will link it to people when I've written it. It's probably going to be done by August this year, because I think that's when I've got to get it done by. But
Wonderful.
I need to actually write it, and I need to actually get the data. That's the hard part. Like, I've got to actually do the thing. I've got to actually talk to people and write down what they say and make meaning of it, and that's hard.
Yeah,
but I can
it sounds like you already have like a really good idea of how to approach it though, which is good.
Yeah, I've got a head start, but there's not physical. There's work that needs to get done to make it happen.
Right.
Yeah.
The thing I love most about this, just thinking about this project, is like the idea of taking the pony music subculture seriously as something that can be academically studied.
Why not?
Well, I mean, the way, I guess I still have that sort of stigma against, like, internalized stigma against, like internet subcultures is not, like, part of, like, real culture. And it's hard to get past that.
I don't think there is anything that can be classed as not real culture. Because if people come together for some purpose and they engage in human activities like making art, and they meet up together and they have meaningful connections, then that is culture. I think just because it takes place over the internet, or just because the thing that brings people together is even just like a children's cartoon, it doesn't matter, because we are having conversations, we are talking to each other, we're making meaningful connections, and we are creating art as part of this very niche subculture. And I don't see why you would disqualify that, because that's what humans do. That's what humans have always done. It's just like in the past, people would have been confined by their own local region. That's how you would define it. You'd say, like, in this city, this is the sort of scene that they have over there, and they have these communities. It's got like this sort of, they tend to do these sorts of jobs because there's like this industry or whatever going on over there, agriculture. They're of this like racial background, they speak this language and so on. But now things are more disparate with the internet. People are connecting in different ways because people can connect because they have interests in things. And this is what the internet has done for a long time. Like, all you need is to have a certain interest in something, and you can connect with other people over that. And this is the different way in which I guess cultures are evolving nowadays, because like-minded people can, like what we just discussed earlier, like the fact that we're mostly queer, autistic, or like generally neurodivergent people. We're of that sort of type of person.
Yeah.
Why shouldn't that be classed as a real culture? And we have our art that comes with our culture.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really love that.
I mean, we also have our real world. We have our real world cultures as well. Like, I'm also English. I live in the UK, and like, you are from different countries as well. You have your regional culture, but there's also this separate part of your life too.
Yeah, because the internet, transcends the boundaries of like that physical space, and yeah, people connecting through interests rather than region. I think that's a great way of putting it. Wow.
Yeah. It's a rhizome. That's the structure of it. It's a rhizome.
sgap reference.
Yeah.
Deleuze and Guattari reference.
Yeah, I've been reading up about Deleuze and Guattari as well, because I think it's really interesting just how much influence they had on his music, and the concepts in it are really interesting, like how rhizomes work philosophically, and how information is structured and connected, and lines of flight, stuff like that, describing how differences happen over time. And they literally like talking about becoming hoarse at one point as well. Literally.
Wow. I've got to go into that.
Oh, and I even found a paper like called Memories of a Sorcerer as well.
Whoa.
No way. Okay, can you please share
Seriously.
these in the
the
links to these?
I think
that needs to be in the description.
Yeah, because like I'm pretty sure that David was lifting this directly from Deleuze and Guattari and just putting it directly in the music, sowing the seeds, and like now we're discovering this meaning behind postmodernist philosophy, and it's kind of based, in all honesty, what they're talking about.
It's so based.
Yeah.
So fucking based. Well, I think we have a few more questions to get through. We might have already touched a bit on
we talked
some
about
of them.
Yeah, we talked about the sgap community quite a bit.
We did, yeah.
Yeah, the next three, I don't know. They're not so important, but we can go into them if we want to.
Yeah?
Yeah, if you have any strong feelings on them, let's talk about it.
Ask away. I'll try and be more concise if you want.
We just reached around like 90 minutes, so yeah, like we should try to start thinking about wrapping it up soon. I think.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's been really great so far, I'd say.
Yeah.
Good, I'm glad. This has been really nice to have as a conversation.
Yeah.
So let's keep going. Let's wrap it up.
Let's do it. Yeah, I guess the next question would be like, why do you think people are still so attached to sgap's music after 10 years or so?
So I'm gonna echo what I said earlier, because I think it's just good music. That's the first thing, because people like to listen to it, and it's good music, it's well written, well produced, and it's like there's that to cling to. And like the way you described earlier, people are returning to, or they're discovering it because they want to see what like the My Little Pony music community had to make back then, and discovering these like relics from the past, that kind of thing. But there's also people like me who go back for the sake of nostalgia. They go back because they want to not only just recapture the past, but see how that has influenced them so many years later on, and also just like the philosophy in it as well, because like I didn't understand what his lyrics meant when I first listened to his songs, but now I'm older and a bit wiser. It's like, oh wow, like he's been hinting at this the whole time, like openly advocating for communism basically.
Yeah.
And it's like,
yep,
that was not popular at the time in 2011 and 2012.
Not at all, yeah.
10 years later, it's like the word that's on everybody's lips. So it's
what a visionary.
I know. It's like
Truly,
people have... It's interesting in that way. It's good music, and there's deep meaning to it that you can extrapolate from it. I think that's largely it. That's like, I also think there's like an element of mystery as well, because he wasn't really that well known as a person, because like we just know him as David, and there's one interview with him, which is a awkward interview, but it's like, yeah, but it's like back when I was listening to him, to his music, I was like, I didn't know who he was, and I was really attached to the idea of like anonymous musicians who have their artist name and they just make music, and you don't really know who they are in the real world.
Like
I thought
Burial.
that was really interesting. Yes, exactly. Like nobody knows. Well, people do know who Burial is now, but they didn't when he first made music.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like that with like Boards of Canada as well. I used to be really into Boards of Canada, and it's like they just used to make music and just say this exists and you can listen to it if you want or don't, and it just happens to be great music and it's got like hidden meaning in it. So there's an aesthetic that aligns with that, and So Great and Powerful is a musician who also aligns with it too, I think.
Yeah, I think there's a reason why there's a lot of crossover with people who are fans of sgap and like people who are into like Daft Punk or Death Grips or something like that, where like, you know, the bands who just don't really put themselves out there. And I think the people often like search for some sort of reason as to why he like left, quote unquote, but I really just think that, you know, because he's like a communist and like doesn't really, you know, conform to how people usually release or sell music, because he doesn't sell it, you know, like I think he's purely making it to exist. And, you know, that really shows in his work, and I think really like can connect with people, makes it like very special.
Like even how I think I saw the little interview that took place in a hotel room at TrotCon where someone was talking about having been to the art gallery where the Captive Unicorn's tapestry is hung up. And they were talking about them seeing that actual series of tapestries with the capture of the unicorn, and there's a load of scrimshaw in that same museum as well.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
following David himself, and
Yeah.
he's been like referencing maybe this museum itself and deciding to make loosely My Little Pony music based on that. And it's like, is he trying to communicate something to us, or is he just like
He's
making art that is based on his own experience, and
Yeah.
we're reading that significance into what he's doing, but really he's just kind of like a normal guy living his life.
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it's not very, like, I don't know the right word, like not very productive to try to pry into like what he's actually doing in real life and who he
Yeah, I
is as a
don't actually want to
person.
know,
Yeah,
in all honesty, because it's
Same.
like, you know, he's just a person who
Yeah.
is living and probably just like has a job somewhere, and he's just living his life after he made My Little Pony music 10 years ago. But the art still exists, even when he tried to delete it, and we have all been inspired by the art, and we formed a community around it. And I have no idea what he thinks about the community, whether he even thinks anything at all about it. But maybe he is trying to communicate something. Maybe he's just going at his own speed. I don't know.
I mean, maybe what he's trying to communicate is just like who he is at the core. Like any art is just about trying to express yourself to the
That's true.
fullest.
Yeah, like I do some of that with my music too. I say what's on my mind in my songs, and it's like that's a human thing as well, artistic expression in that sort of way. And there's just also this much deeper meaning in it because he was a philosophy student at university, so he's
Right.
got all these references to postmodern philosophy in it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
A lot of
super
questions.
interesting. It's compounded meanings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say that's a very, very well thought out and very detailed answer.
Thanks.
Yeah.
This is so good.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think it comes back to the true reason why people still are attached to it, which is what you said. Like, it's just good music, and there's no
Yeah.
denying that.
Yeah, like he's apparently a perfectionist, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe he just doesn't like his old music, but I think it's really good.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you are a perfectionist and, you know, you spend presumably a lot of time making these songs, like, I know personally I get sick of my own songs after like 2 or 3 hours of working on them. So I can't imagine if he was working on them for, like, I don't know how long it took him to make the songs, but
Yeah.
sounds like it took a long time, especially with all these like complex like atmospheric parts and just like you said, like the complextro-ish parts, like that. You
Yeah.
can't just like shit that out. Like, you have to sit
He
down
put
and like,
thought into this music. It's detailed.
Yeah.
He really tried with this music, and maybe he's just like, you know, when you look at your old art and you just like think, oh God, how did I think that was good at the time? You can cringe a bit at that.
I think it must be that sort of thing happening.
Absolutely.
Like, even like the greatest, you know, people who make art, I think they're going to experience that and have that feeling towards their
In
old
fact,
works. I think it's just natural.
Yeah, I remembered something. Like, I guess this is like, I guess we've done a segue into the delete sgap question.
Yes.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say, I also remember, like, I think I was following Devi McCallion on Twitter back in 2019 as well, and she did an Ask Me Anything, and I asked her, what was it like working with So Great and Powerful? And she said, oh wow, like he made a backing track for the song Fun Fun Fun, I think. And she said it was really good, but then he said, no, scrap that, I'm getting rid of it. And he even deleted the original FL Studio project file or something. And then he remade the track from scratch all over again. And she said it wasn't as good as the original thing that he'd done.
Oh no.
So there's a potential like version of that song that will never exist, but could have existed. So he's literally just a perfectionist.
I think there are most likely lots of sgap songs, especially the collabs, that just have like these alternate versions sitting around. I know someone, I don't, maybe I shouldn't bring it up so people won't harass them, but someone recently alluded to there being alternate versions of a song that they worked on with sgap, and then decided to not share it just because, you know, like, that's fine if you don't want to share something like that. But I mean, just knowing that it's out there, like, I think that's probably something that's common among a lot of the collabs, or probably a lot of his other songs. And it's a tough cycle to go through where you just scrap things entirely. Like, I know personally, I could never delete project files of old things. Like, I save all of them. But I do know people that are kind of caught up in that loop, like where they only have like 7 or so project files on their computer at a time. Because they get so sick with their old stuff that they delete it. Yeah, like one of my friends, who I'll not name, was notorious for doing that back in the day. I think he's grown out of it a bit, but it's so sad, like just deleting the ability for the song to even exist, just like erasing it.
I could never do that.
Same.
Even if I don't like my own music after I've made it, even if I have something about it that just rubs me the wrong way, I can just not listen to it. And like coming to the question of delete sgap, like I was once tempted to delete my own music from the internet too, because I went through that period of sort of like regret and thinking, God, that was so childish at the time, even though I was also like super in denial about every aspect of myself and full of self-loathing and depression. But it was like, I used to get comments on some of my old songs, like, and they were just the most wholesome comments. People saying, oh my God, I just remembered this song again. This is so beautiful. I used to really chill out to this song back in the day. Thank you for making it. And I would just get these periodically around 2015 or so to 16. And it was just like, I am just getting a glowing feeling from this, like a glowing of the heart. And it's like, you know what? Even if I don't like my old music, I still want to keep it so other people can listen to it. That's what I decided to do, because I didn't really like my old music at the time. I've come to terms with it a bit more, and it's like, yeah, it is what it is. Like, I just made what I thought was good at the time. But I think, like, if people do want to get rid of that, then it will have an impact on other people because they won't be able to get it anymore. But people who truly care archive this stuff anyway.
Yeah.
Because, well, we know now that there's all the archives of deleted pony music that exist, and you can download them if you want. But at the same time, it's like, he told people to delete it from their own hard drives. And I don't know how serious he was with that.
You know, there is a lot to say about that post, and I feel like a read of it being that he was just kind of fucking around, like, may be more accurate than some people might think. Like, he is like someone who, like, I feel like could be a bit unpredictable, and no one really knows him personally except like the few that are friends with him. So like, who knows if he was just like, I have this obsessive fan base, let's like fuck with them. You know, like I think that is very, very possible, and people need to
wasn't this like
entertain
the period
that.
Didn't he do this in the period when lots of people were deleting their music anyway?
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of been happening since like 2015, where people have just been like deleting their Brony music and stuff. Like, I don't think it's ever really stopped.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if he was like noticing that this was a trend that was happening in the fandom, and he wanted to make a statement on that by following the trend and ordering other people to take that to its logical conclusion, to try and say, no, none of this ever happened. This was all, like, it must all be erased. Nobody can have any of this culture that we all lived in anymore, which is in complete opposite of what his music is really about, because it is all about community. And it's like, I don't know, it sounds like he's just trying to dare us to say, like, do exactly what I say, and what I say is do the opposite of everything that I've always said before.
It's weird, and it's especially weird to put out something like that but not to put out new music, because I would understand it a bit more if he like put out new substantial projects that like were kind of supposed to be like, oh, like listen to this instead, like you know, I understand that mindset of like, oh, I want to make something so good that you'll forget about the old stuff, but I think that's not how things really work in reality, you know.
He did make more music, like he did Mirrors for Princes and then Captive Unicorns, and they're really good, like, in my opinion.
They are good, but that's like 5 songs total.
It is, yeah.
For both of those eras combined, well, like 6 if you count the collabs, which I do. But yeah, like I don't know, it's bizarre. I still don't know why he did it, like, or what his intentions were, and it's still so confusing to me. Like, you know, he came back as Mirrors for Princes. It wasn't very pony at all. And I thought that was the direction he was going to take it. Oh yeah, I love that stuff. But then he comes back as Captive Unicorns, has like the weird Twitter stuff, which is kind of like horse ebook style stuff, just taken from like weird writings. And then he releases the 2 songs and then the one with Samasis, and kind of hasn't done anything for 2 years. And they're also pony though, is the thing. Like, I don't understand. Like, I thought he was out of it with Mirrors for Princes, and then he comes back with the pony stuff, and it's like, I mean, he's referencing his old songs and in the Captive Unicorns things, and it's just so bizarre and out of left field. But I know for a fact,
I don't think
like,
you can go on. Sorry.
Oh,
finish
no.
that thought. You know for a fact
like that day when he came back and uploaded Scrimshaw, like the magic that was felt like throughout the sort of community, just the excitement was just unlike anything else I've felt for any other musician that I follow. Like, just getting more sgap music randomly one day, that I still remember where I was like when I first got that news, and just how ecstatic I was, and just listened to it over and over again.
It was magical.
Ridiculous.
Like,
very
I
magical.
commented on that video saying, you know, it's beautiful. It's like you were never gone.
Yeah.
And I don't know how. I guess there's just something about everything that we've been a part of that brought him back. Even if he was ashamed of the past, it's still like he still wants to make music, and he still wants to communicate with the fandom in that kind of way. Yeah,
I think one thing, I mean, we've done a lot of speculation as to like his motivations. I really think when it comes down to it, it's just he's expressing like who he is as a person in all his emotions and logic combined. And I think a lot of these things were emotionally driven. I stand by what I said last episode, which is just the delete sgap thing, and then coming back with all these aliases. They're just emotionally driven. Like, you do it because you want to do it.
Well, I think there's something like he's directly referencing that in the song Scrimshaw as well, because he's like using that quote talking about the stars in the sky have been burnt out for millennia. Just the light from the dead stars has not gone out because it takes light years to reach us. There's like symbolism in that, saying that in a way the things are dead from the past, but we still haven't noticed it yet. And it's analogous to his music, perhaps. And then he ends the song by saying, "You don't know me." So it's like... he's got some emotional connection with the past, but it's not over yet.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, I think like having this sort of cycle, which I hope keeps going, where he'll like leave for years and then come back and just give us a couple things to like latch onto, like it's honestly something that keeps me going and like gives me a reason to want to keep existing, like kind of similar to like, you know, like following like the stuff that Toby Fox creates, just knowing that it's going to be years and years to get something new, but just having that thing to latch onto like in the back of my head is just, it's like kind of comforting, kind of reassuring, just knowing that something will happen. I mean, with sgap, it's a bit different because we never really know if he's going to come back or if he's going to be gone for good, because it could definitely be the case where he's just never going to make something again and Captive Unicorns is the end. But part of me just knowing that there's a possibility that I'll get more music just makes me want to keep going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wow.
I feel that.
Yeah.
I just want more sgap bangers.
That's the thing, like, there'll never be the past again. Like, we'll never get the standard Model 2, I think, because that was the music for the time of the time. The music is so alive and electric when you listen to it. You can feel the sort of like communal love for the pony characters from listening to that album, and it's impossible to recreate that. It's lightning in a bottle, and we'll never get that time back. Like, this is one thing I think about how the fandom is making like G5 music, and I think it's interesting that they are keeping that going, but people aren't approaching G5 out of a genuine love of the My Little Pony A New Generation movie. They're doing it because they're trying to carry on the tradition from the past. And that tradition was based off this surge of excitement, this sense of like, this is joyous and new. And it's impossible to recreate that, but people are still wanting to keep going because they want to keep that feeling alive and deepen the connection. And that's important, I think, in a way. Like what you just said about wanting to hear new sgap music.
I mean, really what I want is not Unmakeable Love to be finished. It's not it's not the Center Model 2. It's not S3. What I really want is to hear him and his sound, because he's the only one that can make music like him. Yeah. And I just want to hear him express himself through the art that he makes. And I don't care what he puts out. Yeah, I want to hear the sound of his voice. I want to hear his ideas, and I feel such a strong love and connection to the works that he's made that like I just want more of it. And if it takes him another 2 or 3 years to come out with something, like, that's fine. I just want there to be more music that exists from him, because like
it's a parasocial
I just
relationship.
care about it so much. I try to make it as not parasocial as I can, because really I don't care to know him personally at all. Like, I don't want to be friends with him whatsoever. But the art that he creates is so important to me, and like I can't help but just want more of it to exist, you know?
Yeah, it's an interesting distinction we have between the art and the artist, and that could be another like long conversation. But like, you know, because like with social media and internet connecting everyone so instantly, like, it's hard to separate sometimes. Like we were talking about with Skrillex, like becoming a Jordan Peterson fan. Like,
we
now,
hate Skrillex now. Now that he's friends with Jordan Peterson.
How am I supposed to hear bangering in the same way again?
Right? Like, I think this disconnect between the art and the artist that So Great and Powerful and some other musicians like Burial have been doing is is probably the right direction to be heading in terms of this new culture that we're in.
Yeah.
It makes you focus on the music more, and just, I mean, hopefully sometimes it backfires and people just are so obsessed with finding out who the person is because there's no information out there. But I don't think that's the point. I'd like to hope that that's not the point.
No,
I think it is
God,
just
no.
to make you focus on the art. And that's really what I care about the most with these artists, like, you know, like Daft Punk or whatever.
Yeah.
Just like the music. Well,
Yeah.
to end things off, we must ask Avery, do you have any hot sgap takes?
I have one sgap hot take, which is also a little bit related to what we were just talking about. Like, I sort of doubt that he really had never made music before he started posting stuff. Just because I think it's too good to have been the work of someone who'd never made music before. Because
I think my theory is that he never had made music beforehand, but he had a substantial knowledge of it. And I think he was like a very good jazz guitarist before creating anything. So I agree with you. I don't like I find it hard to believe that he like watched MLP and was like, oh, I should make music from this, and then just made a bunch of masterpieces.
Made the standard model.
That doesn't add up.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, because I've been transcribing bits of the standard model, and it's like you go through these songs and you pick it apart and you listen in detail, and there's some advanced stuff in there. Like I mentioned in that conversation I had with Char like a few weeks ago, like he's got stuff in there like metric modulations, and that's really sophisticated music theory, because you don't really learn that, and you definitely don't just like make that up on the spot. That's something you've got to learn before, or at least I had to learn it. I don't know if like he was just a genius and figured it out for himself, but like it's just like the fact that it's got such detail in it and such what seems like insider knowledge of music theory, because he's intentionally tuning some songs in between the semitones. Like, you know, his Flutter Wonder remix is in between C and C sharp. So it's like, really? Your first song out the gate, you're gonna do that the first time around?
Right?
Yeah. I mean, it is of course possible that like when he says he like started making music because of the show, that he like really delved deep into like music theory and stuff like that, and like studied all that beforehand. Like I can see that being the case, where he already had a substantial knowledge of music and then like researched the fuck out of it, and then like maybe made a couple demos and then did Flutter Wonder. But I'd say I generally agree with you that I think it's a little sus that he says that.
Because
you know?
like there are some things that you can't just learn by reading. You know,
That's
it's
very
tacit
true.
knowledge. You can only learn it through doing it. You know, anybody can read a book written by someone advising you on music production or composition tips, but it doesn't really count until you sit down with an instrument or an empty project file and someone says make music. You just got to go and you've just got to make stuff. And to have made something as sophisticated as that first time around, I just like press X to doubt.
I mean, yeah,
like
it's maybe he is just a prodigy combined with all these
I
other
don't
theories.
know. I mean, maybe it's just because like I've been making music since I was like 12, and I was like making music in my head, like dreaming up songs before then, and it's like I started so young and my music was just so bad when I was younger compared to how it's evolved over the years. So it's like to have just suddenly instantly done that out the gate, it's like, if it's true, I'm intensely jealous is all I mean.
Yeah, like I have a very similar experience to that, almost down to a T. Like I started when I was 12. I was making stuff up in my head beforehand, and like it's just, it's ridiculous listening to it and thinking of that claim that he started making stuff because of MLP.
Yeah.
The way I always interpreted that that little comment, I think it comes from the one interview that he did. The way I always interpret it was it was like, I mean, it's easy to think he was like bragging, like, oh, this is my first song and it's so good, but
Humble bragging.
It's a way to be humble. Like, I don't think my music is good, and it's because I don't have that much experience. You know, maybe it's that sort of like,
he could just be underselling himself.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
Severely underselling himself.
Yeah.
That's probably what it was. I mean, when it comes down to it.
Yeah, he definitely doesn't like talking like well about his music. He doesn't like pushing it up and like saying it's good. So maybe it's just like, yeah, I didn't even start making stuff, but like, I don't know.
He's just like, didn't say the spark, say he's like an introvert to the nth degree. So
yeah.
So that's just like him as a person. Like, he's just that shy.
Right.
That he'll intentionally sabotage the reputation of his own music to make it seem worse, but paradoxically makes it seem much better than it had. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Yeah. Well, I will say that, like, I don't know of any other music artist that has like deleted their own work and not interacted really at all with like the community. I mean, like he early on, like he'd reply to comments, but just I don't know of any other community like this that is so big and so strong that has just been built out of this lack of content. It seems like it's just so special, I think, and just like, I don't know. It's
it's like that's his whole aesthetic. It's the null brackets. It's the empty set, the set with nothing in it. That's his whole aesthetic.
Oh.
Yeah, and like, I don't know. I think it really shows that there's something really magical and really special about his music when there's people that are still talking about it to this day. Like, you know, not just his new stuff, but his old stuff. Like, I think it's great. Yeah. And powerful.
Nice.
Nice. Let's see.
Well, if you have any final thoughts, I think we should wrap it up here.
It's like, I feel like I've had so much to talk about, but I could just keep rambling and rambling, but I think it's good to wrap things up here. Because we've talked about so much.
We could have we can continue it in call chat.
Yeah, I mean, if we want.
Yeah, anytime. And like, also like, after we get through a bunch of people, it's not like we can't have you back on for like another episode. Like,
that's true.
I wanna keep making these until like everything has been said and then some. And I want to get everyone on it that feels like they have something to say. Yeah. So we'd love to have you back on, but maybe after, you know, we get through this ever-growing list of people.
Yeah, totally. That would be really lovely.
And maybe, if you had any specific things that you'd want to talk about the next time, you know, it'd be good to get like a huge list by the next time we were around, you know, and then we can get deep and gritty.
I think we should all have to read 1,000 plateaus and then come back to each other and say what happened.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can do reading. Sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, reading. Am I right?
Books.
Yeah.
I'll read it.
Scary.
1,000 plateaus. Okay, yeah.
Oh god, that is like the skeleton key that exists to unlocking So Great and Powerful.
Yeah, maybe I'll check it out if I wanna really understand sgap's work. I'll check it out. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This was such a great conversation.
I totally agree. I've
been
been really hyped for this, and I'm really glad I came on. It's been so lovely to have this conversation with you too.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And just for everyone listening, the next guest we have is Ray Rain Snow Hail. So yeah, keep posted for that. I mean, keep an eye out for that.
Yeah.
We got a list. We got a lot of scappers that we're gonna talk to you about sgap on the next episode.
Right, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Avery, for coming on.
Thank you. See ya. Bye.
Bye.